All right, guys, I've been thinking about making this video for a couple of days. I've saw this got posted, and I've been wanting to watch it, so let's watch it.
The year is 2005, the month February. The world is rocking out to 50 Cent's Candy Shop. George W. Bush is just starting his second term after defeating every terrorist in hand-to-hand combat.
Yep.
But more importantly, it's my birthday.
Aww.
Like many 10-year-old boys on their birthdays, I was having a sleepover with my best friends.
Yep.
My dad gave us his laptop so we could play Flash games on Newgrounds and addicting games like The Impossible Quiz and Kiss Britney Spears by Bobby.
Newgrounds was such a game changer, dude. I discovered so many things that I should not have known about through Newgrounds. Zach Hiddell, I discovered him through Newgrounds. Tom Fulp, Chris O'Neill, all those people, like Stamper, I discovered all of them through there. There were so many games, so many Flash games, so many Naruto Flash games.
That night,
so
we
many
also
stick figure
went to
games.
miniclip.com, a website that, among its sea of half-baked games, was
this is how a lot of people found out about RuneScape.
a small box promoting something called Runescape.
Yup.
So we clicked the link, created an account, and started playing.
Our savior.
Little did I know that the next 2 decades of my life would be defined in large part by this little browser-based MMORPG. And despite years of amazing games coming out that push the boundaries,
if it wasn't for RuneScape, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. I almost guarantee it. If I wouldn't have discovered what MMOs through that method, if I wouldn't have discovered what they were through that method specifically, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I probably wouldn't have the love. If there wasn't something that I had access to regularly that was an MMO when I was a kid, that being RuneScape, I probably would not have developed the love that I have for it. I probably wouldn't have developed the love that I have for RPGs. I maybe wouldn't have developed the love that I have for video games. If I would have just kept playing like whatever platformers or whatever, I probably would have fallen out of it. If it wasn't for RuneScape, I probably wouldn't have loved Kingdom Hearts. If I wouldn't have loved Kingdom Hearts, I wouldn't have loved Final Fantasy VII. If I wouldn't have loved Final Fantasy VII, I wouldn't have loved Final Fantasy X. And that's really the stem of all of this.
of what we thought was possible graphically or through storytelling, I keep coming back to this game that, in the year of our Lord 2024, looks like this.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone. This game is more
so
popular
good.
than it's ever been. New content is coming out at a faster pace than it ever has. And all I can think to myself as I partake in it is, why?
Jimmy took a good stab at this, but I think that he got blinded by the argumentative side of all of this, fighting against something, this concept of nostalgia. And by doing that, he blocked himself into an argument that he had to make consistently. And that's really a problem when you're trying to define why something is popular, because usually there's a whole bunch of reasons. And whenever you're trying to disprove one thing, you often are trying to prove one other thing instead of acknowledging all of the facts. I'm excited to see what Ideal does. Love this guy's videos.
Seriously, why is a game that itself is a re-release of a game that is 17 years old not only surviving, but thriving?
Yeah.
If you just take a surface look at this game, you're probably just gonna be more confused unless you've played it before. And if you have played it before, you might still be really confused. Like, what do people see in this?
Yeah.
This is a question that's been plaguing my mind and the mind of my lovely Patreon supporters. Thank you so much, by the way, guys. You're seriously so awesome. And if you want to support, you can do so for as little as $1 a month. That the link in the description. Whoa. With old school RuneScape, obviously the graphics are dated. It doesn't take a PhD in psychology to see that. Is that the right PhD? I don't know. But even when it comes to character progression, even the littlest things will take hours, and some of the longer grinds can take days. And
so he touched on something that I think is really interesting about MMOs in general, video games specifically, or video games in general, MMOs specifically. So there's a weird thing that I've sort of been touching on over the past 5-6 months of me doing this channel that a lot of people don't talk about, which is the feel of a game, what it's like to be in a game, what it's like to play the game, what it's like to get to the places, what those places are that you're going to get to. And until you get far into a game yourself, you have no idea what you're actually looking for. A flashy trailer can show you all kinds of little things that pop up and make you think that they are cool. They can show you bosses, they can show you areas, they can show you skills, they can show you things to do, mini games, all of these different features of a video game, but they cannot show you what is important about those things. And one of the things that I think is absolutely necessary to have a game that stands the test of time is to have things that while you're doing it are very good to do. And the more cryptic those things are, I almost feel like the better. That's the sort of thought that I have about what's going on here in general. Like, there is... You don't know why the fight caves are important if you've never played RuneScape. And playing RuneScape is the journey to discovering why the fight caves are important. And when you understand why the fight caves are important, then you know why you have to do it. And once you know why you have to do it, I bet you'll do it.
And with a bit
That's
of
what
bad
makes
luck,
a game good.
even months of just doing the same content over and over and over again. But the player count keeps going up. Look how high up I am.
Yeah.
There's so much room below me because the player count is so high. And I'm one of those players. What's wrong with me? I think it only gets crazier when you look at the rest of the MMORPG industry, which are supposed to be old school RuneScape's competitors. Most of these games are fast-paced, action-packed
Nothing is
games
competing
that bring
against
at least
RuneScape. That's one of its
something
biggest
from
strengths.
mainstream AAA titles to the table. Final Fantasy IV.
The only thing competing with RuneScape is RuneScape 3. That's it. There's no other game like it. I mean, nowadays you have, what was that one, like Melville Idol or whatever it's called? The games that are actively trying to be RuneScape clones. Those are the only other ones.
Team has one of the best stories of any MMORPG, and it's a major reason players keep coming back to it. World of Warcraft has the smoothest combat system and a challenging but rewarding endgame that other MMOs have tried to emulate for decades. New World exists, I think, but old school RuneScape
Guild Wars 2's
sits in
combat
its own little
is at least as smooth as World of Warcraft's. It's a little bit different, but it's at least as smooth. It's crazy.
niche, using the same basic systems it released with back in 2001.
Yeah.
You point, click, and wait.
Tick.
There's no other abilities or hotbars. You aren't doing thousands of damage with crazy finishing moves. You just chop a tree and wait. Or you fish for sharks and wait. Or you cook a monster and wait. I mean, you would have to be at least a little crazy to make a game like this today. But that's exactly what makes it so special. There's nothing like it today. Old school RuneScape has, since its inception originally in 2001, basically done the opposite of what someone would think an MMO
People have tried to do this thing over the years, and we've seen it like time and time again, where there's a game that claims that it's going to be like the new version of RuneScape. It's going to be, you know, oh, what was that one? I can't remember what it was called, but it was genuinely like a RuneScape classic remake, basically. And I always sort of feel the same way about those games when I see them is, this is RuneScape if RuneScape had just come out, but RuneScape has been around forever. And I would make the argument that between the two versions of RuneScape, no matter what your desire for the game to be is, they have made the correct decision time and time again. I do not think it's possible to compete against this game. I think that it will exist forever. I think that the nostalgia factor is one of the reasons, but also because if this is a type of game, if we're admitting that RuneScape is a type of game, RuneScape-like MMORPGs, that's a thing, that RuneScape does it best. And I don't know that it's possible to do it better. I really don't. I can't imagine. Someone would have to be this unbelievably forward-thinking creative in order to make a RuneScape-type game that did better than RuneScape, because it has 20 years of experience doing it. It has so much content. All these other games that come out, man, like they're just... It will take them decades to get to where this game is. I don't think it's possible at this point.
Wait, hold on. Are you even listening to what I'm saying right now? Eyes up here, buddy. I see. You're distracted by my awesome shirt. That makes sense because it's from today's sponsor, Into the AM.
for him, dude.
Into the AM is a clothing brand that makes tons of things like long sleeve t-shirts and graphic tees. Really cool graphic tees. Not just this one, but also this one.
Like the Syrah that
this
he's wearing of green screen.
This is a
That's
nice
good.
one. But there's also this guy, which is black, and it just looks really cool, to be honest. But anyway, I've personally been wearing Into the AM since before they even sponsored me. That's how much I
But Cole, don't watch the ads, Cole. It doesn't do anything for him, Cole. That you're only getting one more view on his video. It doesn't matter, dude. You click the link. You see this. You get his code. You use the code that goes back to him. It literally has his name in it. They track all of this. You guys don't know what you're talking about. Stop commenting. I know better. I know better about the advertisements. This is a good thing to do for somebody. Stop complaining.
actually like them.
Enjoy the
I mean, just
video.
look at all
I'm
the
enjoying the
options.
video.
You're gonna be hard pressed to not find something you like here. This is just so cool.
Confidently
I think
wrong,
my favorite part
dude.
about Into the AM is actually that there's something for everyone. Sometimes I like wearing these more minimalistic shirts that just have the little logo on the side here. But every so often it's nice to bust out a sick graphic tee with all these images and colors going on. If you go to the link in the description right now, you'll get 10% off these premium tees.
Intotheteam.com/ideal.
I've been wearing throughout the video. So again, click the link in the description, get 10% off, and all right, can we start focusing up here and less down here for a little bit, okay?
When you
I'll
launch
always
the
look down
game,
there
you're
for you,
placed
dude.
in a very hand-holdy tutorial that teaches some of the very basic mechanics of the game. You learn how to run and mine and cook food and fight until you're eventually
I love watching someone go through the tutorial for the first time and being kind of confused about things and having a hard time. How do I drop an item? You know, like that's one of my favorite questions to get. Or like, you know, so I need to use the shrimp on I got to make the fire for like those things. And I just think like, gets worse.
teleported to the main city of Lumbridge, and that's it. Go forth and create your own adventure or something. I don't know. In other games, you'd usually be given a quest to go speak to some other NPC who will immediately give you another quest. Or
Guild Wars doesn't
you
do
just
this
spawn
either.
next to a quest giver and go from there. But in this game, you're not given any of that. Sure, not far from you are several easy quests that'll get you started, but they don't lead you anywhere new or force you to train skills up.
No.
In every sense, you are left to your own devices to discover the world around you in your own way. And let's be clear, this should suck. In any MMORPG, if you aren't sufficiently motivated by your next immediate goal or working towards some longer-term milestone, you're gonna get bored and quit. And when I asked people on Twitter,
Tiff is somebody who will not go and do things or look up how to do things in video games. Tiff will go through and play a game in a way that is her own unique way, and she fights against ever looking up a guide regardless of how much it would take off of her shoulders. I brought Tiff into RuneScape when she had no interest of liking that game. I walked her around for 4 or 5 minutes in Lumbridge after she got out of Tutorial Island, showed her a quest or two, and then she said, so how do I like get more spells? And then I said, well, you train your magic. And she said, so how do I train my magic? And I knew I had her immediately. That's what that game does. It's a sandbox. And I know that that term has been used over and over and over again, but I mean that. It is an empty, flat land when you log in. You build your own castle as you go. And for some people, they build this immaculate castle that has absolutely everything decked out as far as it can go. You know, they've used up all the sand in the box by the time it's gone. But for most of us, our castles look unique at the end. The things that we have decided to work on, the things that we have decided to sculpt out, the things that have interested us, the things that have brought us into it are what shaped our experience in that. And I really think that that's sort of a symptom of the type of MMOs that I've really become an enjoyer of over the years. Guild Wars 2 does a very similar thing, and RuneScape, I think, was the originator of that concept, at least in the popular world from what I've seen.
Who never played RuneScape back in the day for their thoughts on old school RuneScape, I saw a lot of this exact sentiment. Like Twinleaf, who said he had no idea where to go or what to do, so he just gave up. Or Sawman UK, who said, hold on, let me try and do a good British accent here.
I tried to play it last year and again this year and didn't get past the hour mark. Hope that helps.
But I think old school RuneScape can get away with this for one major reason. It's really damn simple.
Don't get me wrong, RuneScape's an extremely deep game, but on the surface, it's about as simple as it looks. You want to get some woodcutting levels?
You click on a tree.
Chop literally like any tree. Just go ahead, click, and just wait. And the first few quests you'll come across, like Cook's Assistant.
This is a question I get all the time from random people whenever I'm streaming this game, and I find it to be really, really interesting because I don't know why I get it so much. I don't know what people expect from me to give to them, but this is the question that I always get, which is why do people like this game? I've tried it, and it sucks. And I go off on a spiel. I go, okay, so there's a whole bunch of skills that you can train up or not train up. There's also a whole bunch of quests over here that you can click through, and they'll show you exactly what skills you need to complete them. But along with the skills that are involved to complete them, you're also going to have to use these skills in interesting kinds of ways to solve little puzzles that all interconnect with each other inside of an ever-expanding world that has an unbelievably deep amount of lore, along with a gear catalog that is instantly recognizable if you're walking around doing it. The in-game content is extremely challenging, and a lot of people will get all the way into multiple thousands of hours of playing this game without ever tackling any of the in-game content, for the majority of people who are around, this game never ends because of how long it takes to actually get to the places. You can actually have real conversations with people about this game and in this game that will entertain you and keep you going. All of the systems interconnect in some kind of really interesting way. And it is that all of those things. It is really good. It is really good. The fact that, I mean this not as an insult to people, but like as a truth of the situation at hand. If you do not like the game, it does not mean the game is bad. It might mean that it's not for you, but more likely it means that your understanding of what the game is and what's going on in it just isn't there yet. You know, like if you're not someone who is capable of being committed to a game for hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, then RuneScape is definitely not the game for you, because in the first 5 hours, unless there's something that clicks with you immediately, you're not going to have the biggest amount of fun ever, sure. But I love the first 5 hours of RuneScape. For me, it's some of the best part of the game. Those early moments that I did over and over and over again when I was a kid. Those things that I experienced for the first time that keep me coming back, that I can do them in my head with my eyes closed. I can do Cook's Assistant. I can get the bucket and the pot. I can go and get the egg. I can milk the cow. I can mill the wheat into flour. I can bring it back to him. I can see not being invited to the Duke of Lumbridge's party. I can go upstairs and talk to the Duke of Lumbridge and get the Rune Mysteries quest. I can go to the Wizard's Tower. I can go downstairs in that tower and talk to Certador. I can get the package to take to the rune shop. I can get the research notes from the rune shop. I can come back and do that. I can go back to Lumbridge. I can go into the graveyard. I can go in or I can go and talk to the priest that's in the church that's attached to the graveyard. I can learn about the ghost, or the priest, not priest in peril, what's that quest called? The ghost quest. Why is it slipping my mind? I can learn about that quest. I can go talk to the guy who's living in the hut. I can get the ghost speak amulet. I can go back to the ghost. I can learn that his head is missing. I can go back to the Wizard's Tower, which I learned about in the last quest. I can get the skull from the basement. I can get chased by the skeleton on my way back. I can go back to that graveyard. I can put the skull in there. Like, I can do all of it in my brain. That's how important this game is to me. And like, And the fact that there are people who play it for 30, 40 minutes and go, well, it wasn't Fortnite. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, dude. Of course it's not Fortnite. It is a CRPG. It is an MMORPG. And it's an RPG. And if you don't know what those things are, then like maybe this isn't the place to start, but like I'm telling you, this game is great in ways that other things are not.
Are really, really simple. Everything you need to complete them is within a 30-second walk of the starting area, so it doesn't get any easier than this. But again, that's the strength of the game. Old School RuneScape presents you and its new players with an entire sandbox in a massive world, and doesn't give you any other direction than just play. But since it's so simple to figure out how to do the most basic actions in the game, that actually works to its benefit. Once you take those first few steps out into the world, you're off, and there's nothing in your way. Eventually the game does get more complicated. Like, the quests you'll find will have certain prerequisites, like maybe you need a certain thieving level before you can start it, or even you have to have completed enough quests beforehand to start this quest.
It pushes you in the
by
direction.
That point, you've already learned what you need to figure out how to make that progress. And if you haven't, then you've already probably learned where to look to find out.
Fights with monsters will evolve from simple click and wait battles to encounters where you need to have an inventory full of food, better gear, and maybe even higher stats to unlock.
If this scares you, this is another thing that I've really noticed, that there is like this ideology behind old school RuneScape that it's this impenetrable wall of difficulty, and that there is this enormous grind that you're going to be completely incapable of overcoming, that it's going to take you a ridiculously long amount of time. To the people who sort of have that notion, and it is a long grind, but it's like, it's not the way that you think it is. So the people who have that notion, I think that there's a type of gamer who plays a game and they get really comfortable in what they're doing, and they don't want to move on to anything new that they haven't learned how to do yet. They almost have this sort of anxiety about doing that thing. People who have spent, who have spent 2 years playing Guild Wars 2 and never touched anything but overworld content. People who play RuneScape and the only place they ever do combat is on crabs or sand crabs. People who play World of Warcraft and they never ever touch a raid, like these kinds of people. And that's totally a fine way of playing it, but I'm just letting you know ahead of time that as someone who goes into the depths of games, who pushes himself regularly, usually if you have that concept of this game is way too difficult, it's because you haven't learned something about it yet. They are meant to be conquered. That is what a video game is, and this game in specific has a whole lot of ways for you to tackle challenge that if you don't know about them, it seems impossible, but if you learn about them and you put in the time, then you can tackle the challenge.
Things like protection prayers. The game never tells you to get 43 prayers so you can block all incoming melee damage, or to get 30 defense so you can wear adamant armor. It doesn't have to.
Say 47?
Incoming melee damage or protection prayers. The game never tells you to get 43 prayers so you can block all incoming melee damage, or to get 30 defense.
I almost actually this guy
so
just
you can
now.
wear adamant armor.
I'm glad that he got it right, so I didn't have to be a jerk, dude.
Have to.
I would have been so disgusted with myself if I would have done that. If I would have gone, actually, it's 43. Dude,
the
come
early
on, Cole,
game is
take it down,
essentially
dude.
its own tutorial, because
Don't nerd out too
you'll
much.
more than likely be able to figure out everything you need to for yourself while staying completely immersed. Hell, the entire game is basically one long tutorial
yeah.
disguised as an MMORPG. You don't even realize it as it's happening, but you're learning how this game and how this world works. By the time you've reached the mid-game, when you've progressed a lot of your individual
What was that reward? What kind of clue was it? It's definitely not good. The magic sword, by the
game and how this world works. By the time you've reached the mid-game, when you've progressed a lot of your individual skills and started taking on more difficult quests, you'll be introduced to the next way old school RuneScape encourages you to lose yourself in the game.
Use Dragon
You'll get
Semi-Cursor.
sidetracked. You might get sidetracked by something simple, like maybe you want to kill lizardmen for your Slayer task, but those very lizardmen drop a clue scroll. A clue scroll is basically a treasure map.
Sidetracking is such an interesting topic with RuneScape because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I think that people who play a video game by going, I'm going to do X thing, are sidetracked. I think that the people who go, before I go any further in this game, I'm going to get 99 fishing. And they set this giant lofty goal for themselves, sidetracked. Sidetracked to hell and back, dude. They have completely lost track of playing the game and they're escaping into something else in order to take a little break from it, which is totally fine, totally doable. But I think it's a form of being sidetracked. I think that playing the game in the way that the game wants you to play it, getting level 99 in the skills is such a late thing to be doing,
That takes you through a series of riddles until you find the treasure. The answers to the riddle could be simple, like you have to talk to an NPC back in Lumbridge where you started, or maybe you have to dig along the bank of a river. But some of these clues will have certain requirements to be completed, like this one that requires you to perform an emote in the Fishing Guild. And that's when you realize that to get in the Fishing Guild, you need 68 fishing, and you never trained your fishing because fishing is for nerds, and you're not a nerd. You're a normal person who watches video essays about a point-and-click MMORPG. But if you want to complete this clue scroll, it's time to get catching. Maybe you decide it's time to look up how to train fishing efficiently. I mean, after all, you want this done as quickly as possible to get back to your Slayer task. And maybe you find a guide that recommends wearing the Angler set, which is gear that boosts your fishing XP by a marginal amount. That's bad advice, but, maybe it's out there. So eventually you find yourself in the fishing trawler minigame so that you can start working on the Angler set, so that you can start working on getting 68 fishing, so that
RuneScapers will play the game for 100 hours to save themselves 10 hours on a grind. And I find that to be amazing, dude. It's so funny having conversations with people and they are basically berating you for the way that you're playing the game. They're like, don't you know the most efficient way is to do this thing? You're going to need that thing anyways. And then you go, it's going to save me 4 hours. It'll take me 100 hours to get. Why do I need it so bad? And they're like, well, because if you don't have it, you don't have it.
you can get into the Fishing Guild so you can continue doing this clue scroll.
I guess.
Do you even remember why you're doing this clue scroll?
Drop the
But after
clue,
all that
dude.
sidetracking, you finally get your casket, which is basically a reward filled with goodies. It's a lot like a present if you think
It's a
about
beginner's
it.
casket.
A birthday present. Kind of like how my birthday is on February 22nd, if you want to mark it on your calendar or something. I don't know. This is an extremely tame example of sidetracking I described, by the way. It can and does get much deeper than this.
Yeah,
Anyone
way
who has
deeper.
played RuneScape for any amount of time will attest to it. But this sidetracking all over the world and through multiple goals is just part of how the game keeps you hooked. You'll be working towards one of your long-term goals, but along the way, dozens of short-term goals will pop up naturally that will keep you going. And
Remember when you're playing RuneScape that if you can't remember why you're doing something, stop doing it. Remember that. If you're doing the agility pyramid to get money and you can't remember what you needed the money for, quit doing the agility pyramid.
Show you parts of the world you maybe hadn't been to before, because the world is fucking huge.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, look at all of this. It's insane.
Yeah.
And the worst part is that as I'm filming this, it's about to get bigger.
Yeah.
So that's
Varlamore's cool. I've been to
Even if you
Varlamore
take
recently.
away
It's
the fact
good.
that the whole
I'm excited
time
about
you're
it.
progressing your character numerically, you're also discovering a world and everything it has to offer as you get stronger. Like Wrinkle Lover says, this all adds up to make progression feel meaningful. And most importantly, it doesn't feel forced, because it's not. You're just following the flow of the game. This isn't only true for new players. Veteran players are constantly discovering new things about this game we've been playing for 2 decades for some of us. Anyone who's watched the Swampletics series knows how many insane discoveries Settled makes throughout the course of that journey. Yeah, it comes as a result of some crazy self-restrictions he put on himself, but still, it just shows how deep this all is, and it's just so awesome that we can still...
There is genuinely no wrong way to play this game. It's the same way with most MMORPGs, but this one, we're talking about right now, so I'll talk about it. Anything that's going to get you to your goal is a completely okay way of doing something. And the people who try to tell you other things are just, they cannot grasp the fact that you aren't them. They don't understand that. They do not get it. Anyone who is irritable or vibrantly trying to tell you to do it a different way cannot understand that maybe you just don't want to do it that way. Someone told me that I was torturing myself by getting 7 levels from spinning flax in crafting. It took me 2 hours. They told me I was torturing myself. That's a crazy person.
We'll be learning something new about a game that came out years and years and years ago. Like I've said multiple times already, this game is so simple, and that's why it gets away with being able to give you all of this right from the start and just let you run through it so you can learn as you go. It's a beautiful hands-off approach to getting players in the game.
I need bowstrings later for fletching anyways.
That really is a relic of a past era, something I don't think we see very much at all anymore.
If you look at games like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV, you'll almost always have a quest telling you exactly where to go, or even these markers on the ground that will tell you where to walk to get where you need to go. They will hold your hand the whole way through. Even RuneScape 3, the modern version of this ancient game, does this. Once you finish the tutorial, there are markers everywhere that will teach you how to train all sorts of skills, how to do combat, and more. The devs are so worried about you getting lost that there's an obscene amount of guardrails around the world. Maybe that's the right move for those games. I mean, they are much more complicated right out the gate than old school RuneScape is. That's obvious. But for old school RuneScape, it just makes sense to be thrown into the world. It just feels right. Like I said before, there's nothing in your way of just starting your journey, whatever that journey may end up being. But one thing that journey will definitely be is really, 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 really long.
If you didn't get bored in the first hour...
So this is a thing that I think is a really interesting concept that people talk about a lot, where they go, this is the right way to make a game. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe that there's a right way to make a game. I believe that all of these games have merit in their own way, that they are for different people at different places, and sometimes they're for me at different places as well. And I don't believe in just going through and being like, that's a bad game, unless it functionally does not work and does not do the thing that it's supposed to do. If the game serves a purpose, then it is not a bad game. It is a game that might not fit me, but it's not a bad game. I think that people have all of these really compartmentalizing tactics that they do to try to save themselves from having to think a whole bunch about something that's really in-depth, to consider why a game is actually, the way that it is. You hear all the time when people say something's a bad game, that game sucks, that game's so bad. Why is it a bad game? I just didn't click with it, man. Cool, dude. Excellent. Maybe choose your words better.
Hour of playing, which I mean, a lot
I
of
didn't
people
like
do,
that game.
Then you'll inevitably encounter what
I
old school
haven't
RuneScape
played
is
it very
truly known
much.
for. Grind.
Those are all sentences that you can use too, just so you know.
If you don't know what grinds are, they're basically these things that skateboarders
They
do.
mean
where
different
they, like,
things.
hop up on a rail and then they like,
Make you look better to people. They make you look like you have an understanding of yourself and the world around you in a better way. They make people perceive you differently and not like write you off in some kind of way when you just say a canned response because you don't want to think about it very hard. When you took the time to bring... I'm getting off topic. Let's just go, guys.
down it, and it's worth a lot of points in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 if you use some combos off of it. So that's a little skateboard humor for you, just to lighten the mood. Speaking of skateboards, have you subscribed yet? Anyway, grinding is core
I've
to
been
old school
subscribed,
RuneScape's
Ideal.
identity.
I love
it's the
you,
process
Ideal.
of getting from where you are now to whatever goal you've set out for.
You make good
That could be
videos.
something
They're just
like
usually really long, and I don't like to react to videos that are more than like 20 minutes long because they end up being forever long, and then it's the
from
whole
50
thing.
to 70 fire making.
I do want to react to like a video that takes me 24 hours to react to, though. So if anyone has a video like that that's in this vein, let me
Or
know.
getting 99 smithing, the maximum level, because you're a bit of a freak. It can even be the process of getting a drop from a monster, like the coveted Tanzanite Fang from Zora, which has a 1 in 112 chance of dropping on any given kill. These grinds could range from taking a few hours to multiple weeks, and for the largest goals in the game, like maxing all of your skills, it can take years. But RuneScape players, me included, love it. And to be fair, what's not to love about getting something like 99 agility? You get to run on this sick-ass rooftop in a town called Ardouche. And when you finish a lap on it, you get all of this sweet XP, and then you get
I'm pretty sure I called it Arjone when I was a kid, or maybe I called it like Ardong. I don't know.
do
I
it
don't
again
remember.
and again and again.
Adronge. I called it Adronge. I don't even know how I got that, but I called it Adronge.
And again and again and again and again and again and again and again. By the way, you unlock this course at level 90. Do you want to know how many times you have to do a lap on it to get to 99? 9,695 laps.
Awesome.
That's how many times you have to do it to reach the maximum level. Does that sound crazy? It should, but for some people, even after they hit the maximum level, they keep going because they want to reach
200
the
million.
maximum experience. 200 million. That means they have to do this an additional 235,000 times. All I'm saying is we shouldn't be surprised that
I love RuneScapers, dude. They're the great. They're so interesting. The way their brains work, the way our brains work. Like, I don't know what's wrong with us. I mean, we might be on the spectrum. That might be part of it, perhaps, you know? But there is something going on. Like, I think that, to me, it's like if you've ever had an Apple Watch, how they have the rings that you fill up over the course of your day by doing your fitness goals and things. RuneScape is like a ring that is unfilled up and it never resets. So the more I push at it, the further it goes around. And I just feel like there's something for me at the other end of that ring being closed, dude. I don't know how to explain it any other way. It pulls at me forever. It's an unclosed band that if I don't complete it, I'm not keeping a promise to my younger self who slacked off from this game and didn't get good back then, and he kept being like, well, you know, I can play this game whenever. And now I have to pick up that slack that my younger self didn't do because he was too busy laying in bed and doing nothing. Now I can't lay in bed and do nothing.
Guy who's gotten 200 million agility 6 times is mentally ill. This is an extreme example, but it is truly an aspect of the game that most players would never want to see changed. For them, it's core to the game. Like somewhat recently, one of the most important items, the Dragon Warhammer,
It
had
increases the defense of enemies,
its
yeah?
drop rate changed from 1 in 5,000 to 1 in 3,000. This is obviously a big change, making it almost twice as likely to drop, but also keeps it pretty rare. This change, though, was extremely controversial. It was so controversial that when I tweeted in support of it, I got called the R slur repeatedly.
Bro, if this is who you are, know that I don't mess with you at all, dude. If you're the type of person who over a video game insults people directly at their character, you act like they're a bad person, you need to go to therapy. You have things going on with you that are problematic. You will never be happy in life. You are creating your own prison that you live in by not understanding how socialization, the core traits of being a human being, and even the very nature of just the world around you actually works. If you're going to call someone the R slur for supporting a change in a video game, that is an opinion-based thing. There is no way in this world that you can make the argument to me that you have the factually correct opinion, because that's not what opinions are. You have something going on with you. Straight up. Straight up, dude. And I'm not going to argue with you about it. It's true. Deal with it. Deal with it and make the world a better place, one little problematic person at a time, please.
To be fair, that was on Twitter, but the sentiment of a lot of players is still that these long grinds should be left the way they are. And that might sound weird to people who are outside the game. I mean, the grindiness of RuneScape is often cited as a big turnoff to the game. But honestly, I think I get it. There's the obvious fact that a long grind means a big payoff. When you invest a lot of time into something and you finally achieve that goal, whether it's a drop or just an amount of XP, you've earned it, and feeling like you earned something feels good. I have gone many times over the drop rate, several times in this game, and the excitement about finally...
That freaking mace. I got it, dude. It just took me 1,000 kills to get all the pieces to the mace.
Seeing a drop that I've waited so long for is unmatched.
Yeah.
But I think there's something else to these grinds too. When I look at what newer players told me they liked about the game, it lined up with what I and a lot of other veterans like about it, whether we realize it or not. RuneScape is a comfort game. You can pop open a Netflix show or a YouTube series on one monitor while you cut trees or kill a boss or do some quests in RuneScape. Maybe you could watch some anime like Oraimo with episode 1 called
MapleStory is also a comfort game. If you ever find yourself being on a break from RuneScape, but you miss that kind of like slow pacing that you don't have to pay too much attention to, MapleStory is a great game for you. There is very little you have to do on the daily in MapleStory that will take your full attention, and it's a very pleasing game to look at, and the progression in it feels really, really nice if you play on a reboot server.
My little sister can't be my love, or episode 3 called My Little Sister Can't Be This Cute, or episode 6, My Childhood Friend Can't Be This Cute. Okay, I guess that one's a pretty normal title. Either way, most of the grinds in this game can be really relaxing and pretty passive, allowing you to get the joy of progressing while not having to pour all of your focus into the game. Sure, other MMORPGs have moments like this.
Yeah.
Fishing in World of Warcraft, for example, is a nice bit of downtime, but
collecting herbs,
it's much more
mining.
central to old school RuneScape. It almost paradoxically makes this high investment game really casual friendly. But as you continue working on your character in these simple, pretty passive ways, you'll unlock the ability to do much more active content that does require your full attention and can really force you to put your skills to the test. It might be getting your first fire cape, a rite of passage for any new RuneScape player, or down the road it might be learning how to 6-0 range bandos on your Iron Man, which requires insane timing and skill, which is why I'm so good at... Oops. I'm dead. Let's just be clear that I did get a kill right after I filmed this clip. There's the kill, so any haters... I don't want to hear it. This game provides you the ability to balance how you want to play it. You can take it as easy as you want, or you can go full focus and squeeze out every bit of efficiency there is, not just with boss content, but even with skilling content. You play how you want because this game is a comfort game. And like I said at the beginning, there's no other game like it. Every MMORPG has its grinds and its warts, but none of them embrace those aspects like old school RuneScape does. No other game would keep the
MapleStory.
graphics it had in 2007 for the
MapleStory.
next decade of its existence while things constantly get updated around it. No other community would make sure the sound that nail beasts make stays exactly the same, even though it's literally ear-piercing. Jesus, God. No other game would do those things.
Jeez, dude.
That's the last thing that makes this game so special. Its identity, and the ridiculous commitment the developers and community have to it.
Yeah.
Old School RuneScape was released on February 22nd.
I think it's so funny that old school RuneScape players fight for the game to stay exactly how it was, and they also fight for their right to be able to change it client-sidedly over in RuneLight constantly. Like, that's what they do.
Otherwise known as my birthday. That's weird. Is that the third time I've mentioned my birthday in this video?
It's so
Crazy.
far away, man. No one's going to remember.
Civilization.
You need to make this video. You need to make another video where you mention it a little bit closer. That's how you do
Write
that.
it down or something just so you don't forget. The game was spun up from a backup Jagex had lying around of RuneScape back in August 2007, and after a poll that received honestly fewer votes than I remember, Jagex agreed to release old school RuneScape servers. But what's interesting is why people wanted to go back to the way things were in 2007. Sure, nostalgia had a part to play in it. That's been talked about enough for one lifetime. But the much more compelling reason, in my opinion, for these old school servers was due to what was going on in Runescape, which at the time was the only version of Runescape there was.
Yeah.
In the years since 2007, Runescape received tons of new updates, like 2 new skills, summoning and dungeoneering, a minigame called Mobilizing Armies that was so bad it was eventually removed, and a slew of new content like distractions and diversions, penguin hunting, and more that was meant to be completed on a daily and weekly basis. Not all of these additions were strictly bad, but they also didn't necessarily feel like Runescape to a large portion of the player base. And that's because Jagex was doing what they could to modernize the game. These modernization efforts accumulated in what was one of the most infamous updates in MMO history, the Evolution of Combat. The Evolution of Combat was a total revamp of the extremely simple RuneScape combat system. It changed how monsters worked, added abilities and a hotbar to characters, and for many players,
The thing about RuneScape 3 nowadays is that if you haven't played it for a long time and you've been playing old school RuneScape for a while, you should probably give it a little bit of a try. It's good. There's a lot of things going on. I've put several hours into it, tens of hours at this point into it. I have a good time over there. It's a lot different than RuneScape, but it's also not at all different than RuneScape in some way because it is RuneScape. They've really worked to sort of bring it back to a lot of the things that I think made old school RuneScape really, really good. At least in the beginning of it. I know that as you go further, it changes dramatically more. But then also they have their own little changes that are going on with it. And the evolution of combat thing isn't as big of a deal anymore. It's honestly, you can play it without thinking about any of that stuff
at
at all.
the end of their personal journeys on RuneScape. That includes me. From what I've heard, the evolution of combat in a vacuum isn't bad, especially after it was refined into what it is today. It makes combat more active and engaging, even for more low-level encounters. But it undoubtedly changed RuneScape at such a fundamental level that it was no longer RuneScape.
Yeah,
It
totally.
played like a worse version of the dozens of other MMORPGs on the market.
Yep.
So yes, the calls by the community for old school RuneScape servers was them asking to go back in part due to nostalgia, but it was also a desire to get back a game that really was one of a kind. Over a decade later, the combat system in old school RuneScape is basically untouched. The graphics are the same as they were back in 2007. Even new content is intentionally designed to look and feel like old school RuneScape, something that sounds stupid but makes a lot of sense when you see how seamlessly it all fits together.
Old school RuneScape gets weekly updates, and it has for basically its entire existence with just a few exceptions. These updates range from bug fixes to new quests to new bosses and maybe entirely new regions. And when you go try out these new pieces of content, you'll be able to tell that it's more modern than what came before it, or at least a higher quality. But you'll be hard-pressed to find anything that doesn't feel like it fits in. Something that doesn't feel old school. This game and its developers know what it's...
Varlamore is the closest thing to that, just because of how dramatically it departs from anything that we had in old school RuneScape in stylizing of it, you know? Like, the look of things in that area are not Alcarid, they're not Karamja, they're not, you know, Brimhaven, they're not any of those things. It's this own unique little biome, and where I feel like a lot of the other places, like Kandarin, kind of feels like it could be somewhere in the RuneScape from before. Not that I think that's a bad thing. It feels like the first real expansion in RuneScape, in my opinion, personally.
Its identity is. And sure, there's been changes over the course of the decade plus it's been.
Kandarin? Was that the one? Hold on. Kandarin, yeah? Kingdom of... The tombs, crypts of Corinne, not Kandarin. Sorry, guys.
Now, that's normal, but it hasn't ever strayed from
it doesn't work
being
anymore. The brain doesn't work anymore.
what it is. It's a grindy but simple game that you can invest literally tens of thousands of hours into and never be done with. So why is old school RuneScape so popular? Because it's one of a kind, and it knows that. And I'm gonna go to sleep now. Good night.
Hey, you're a patron.
Good job, Ideal. Very good job. Like the video if you haven't already. His videos are always really good. Go and give him a subscription, too. He's really good at making these videos. RuneScape's just one of those games, man. I think it will be forever, you know? And, like... I mean, I don't know. It's only getting more popular. I feel like I'm just preaching to a choir at this point. Like, you guys know that that's good. So go play it. Go play it. Stop. You know, you're probably playing it right now. I'm probably on your second monitor. It's probably right there. There. Okay, there. I finally pointed at it. It's probably right there. I'm assuming that you have a vertical monitor like I do, and your monitor's over there. Your monitor's over there. It's really hard to figure this out for some reason. Why can I not point my finger? The camera angles are so strange. See, now I'm out of frame. There we go. It's probably over there. Play that game some more, dude. Watch another one of my videos. Bye.
Thank you so much.